Welcome to the Paranormal UK Radio Network, created by Owen Allen and Mark Johnson. Twin Souls is hosted by myself, Philip, along with my twin brother Ronald Kinsella, in association with the Paranormal UK Radio Network. A very warm welcome to all our listeners. Now, tonight's show, with me and Ronnie, is called Disinformation. Why is it that the public are being misled about not just the UFO phenomena, but also about the creation of man and the creation of the universe, along with many other parallels? Hello, Ronnie.
Hello.
So we've been talking this week, both of us, about disinformation.
Yes.
And why it is there is so much anger and unrest among many of the population at present. Indeed, we're seeing a lot of changes occurring, not just around the world in terms of the geographical locations or disruptions with Mother Nature, but also about people's attitudes.
Yes, politically as well. I think we're at a point in time, it's like a Mexican standoff, especially with Brexit, where we're not sure what's going on. And people are still angry at those that voted to leave and so on. But we'll focus more on the actual disinformation regarding the UFOs and the creation of the universe. Incidentally, Philip and I have just done a talk at a seminar, Ben Emlyn Jones's seminar, Dreaming Saucers. And I also did one prior to that at Nils Group, the High Wycombe Paranormal UFO Group. So I'm very pleased to have attended them along with Philip. And we did some interesting talks. Mine was based more on the Archons, where Philip was based on the Greys, wasn't it? About the
about the hypothesis or the model that I created with regards to soul extraction. And I know that one chap had did a rap on it with my voice included from the Glastonbury Symposium. So I got to thank the guy for believing in what I was talking about, and many other people that support us and all the other radio stations that we're affiliated with.
Yes.
But I think it's interesting because although you get a lot of negativity from people who don't want to understand, and I totally respect that, but it's when people start to attack you. Now, my argument is this. Although there has been a lot of controversy surrounding UFOs, we know, one, that they are real, two, that they are still an enigma, and three, that we have to create theoretical models to try and work out what they are. But also, for those people that don't believe that, there's one big bit of proof that we have, and it stares us almost in the face, unless you had a telescope, every single day. It's the universe.
Yes.
And one of the things that I think people need to understand is that if they think that UFOs are all hocus pocus, then can they answer the paradox that faces us out there in space?
Yes, because you see, we're on this little marble, this jewel, this planet, this wonderful planet of ours. And because they've been so grounded and so brainwashed into earthly matters, when they attack UFOs, as Philip is rightly saying, they don't look at the grander picture. I mean, when you actually look at a chart of the universe and it just goes off the scale, we'll never map the whole thing. I don't think we ever will, let alone understand it. It is absolutely phenomenal. Now, I did say this in my talk I did at Ben's conference about the teachers having taught us that the universe started with a big bang, and I questioned what caused the big bang, and I was told that I shouldn't question that because it just is. The thing is that nothing happens just by chance. It's cause and effect. And I did say to the teacher, even this enigma, which they don't know, they can hypothesize on it, is there has to be cause and effect. And what was there before that? You know, there's no such thing as nothing. What are we contained in? What are we held in? Is it in a bubble? Is it multiple universes? Is there more and more? And what's beyond that? I sometimes feel that these people who attack the theories on UFOs need to look at the grander picture first, the bigger picture. before they can start criticizing theories and models based on the hypothesis of UFOs and where they come from.
And also of the creation of man. I mean, let's take a look at this, shall we, in a very simplistic manner. I mean, you know, we've got two versions here. One version is scientific, one version is religious. In the scientific academic circles, they state that we derive from apes. In the religious interpretations, it is stated that we were created by a divine force. I'm not doubting both of those theories because I am absolutely convinced that the genus of man cannot be found because there was some form of genetic creation by perhaps gods that had created us as slaves. And as I always joke with Ronnie, nothing much has changed today.
You're talking about genetic intervention.
Yes. And I also feel that, you know, with the species of ape, perhaps the Homo erectus was fashioned or modeled by these extraterrestrials to create man. Now, the other argument that I stated here is that if we were the true inhabitants of this planet, why do we shy from the sun? We would have had a more pronounced brow to protect us from that light, and also more hair on our body to protect us from the elements. But and as someone else said to me not long ago, another researcher, they stated categorically that we are not built to actually survive this realm because we need clothes, we need buildings, you know, and all of the rest of nature has adapted itself so brilliantly to its environment except man. And this is why the scientific establishments brought in the Darwinian school of thought, and everyone says, oh yes, we arrived, we came from apes, we arrived into the world from this family. Well, I'm not disputing that fact, because I believe that some part of a hominid was fused with perhaps alien DNA to create man.
It's quite possible, isn't it? I mean, there is a good deal of debate about these aliens, what they are. I do believe that certain factions are much wiser to it than we are, most certainly the military. And it could be possible that they are protecting us from a horrible dark secret. I personally, and I've gone more towards, we'll call them the demon angle, the archons, whereas others will feel that they're from outer space. And this is another thing that interests me about this distrust, this disinformation, is the fact that, and I'll say this respectfully, that in the 50s you had people, and I've said this before, coming out with these stories of being abducted, and they're taken to Venus and Jupiter, and they're shown this lovely scene, and these aliens are expressing a world concern. You know, they're concerned about our welfare and being as we progress forward, especially then in the atomic age, and after that the nuclear. Well, to put it candidly, they've done bugger all, these aliens. And isn't it funny how we read about these cases of an incident that occurred where a number of UFOs actually influenced their power on a number of nuclear weapons and disarmed them. And people made a big fuss about that. If they were really concerned, and I said this at my talk at Ben's group, is what they would do, and quietly, is just disarm every single missile on the planet. They have the power to do it. Obviously, they're extremely incredible. Nullify them. We build more. Nullify them. We build more. And we get the point. You have the slap on the hand. No more nuclear weapons. No, they're not doing that. I reckon it's disinformation. I think it's we're being lied to by them, whereas they're actually making themselves appear concerned through this care of the world and the humankind. I mean, you look at the Second World War, let's go back, and when the Great War occurred, there was always heavily reported Foo Fighters. Basically, they're orbs that travel and follow planes in the action. You know, whatever this force is keenly watching us, but it's doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's a kind of like observation. It's like going back into the creation myth of man. You know, we hear a lot of stories about the Greys, which are famous within UFO literature. And there must be some element of truth with regards to these beings, because they have been, carved in stones from the antediluvian cultures. There are some remarkable descriptions of them being in Egypt. So could these greys themselves be kind of like the co-creators to man, and that they are now bringing about a new program, a new genus of man? Because if we go back to the ancient times, we will discover that within the Bible, that God created man and took a rib from Adam and created Eve. Now, we know in the scientific version that's kind of possible, because the rib regenerates and also carries a lot of DNA in it. So are we looking at some form of gene splicing operation that had been taken effect?
You mean from a DNA point of view?
Yes, correct. The whole issue being is that now we hear these reports of, these hybridization programs going on, human females carrying hybrids in them, and then them asking to bond with the actual child on board these so-called crafts to introduce compassion and love. I know that Dr. David Jacobs believes that these new hybrids are walking among us, and I'm not disputing that at all. We hear these stories all the time, fantastic stories about you could walk down the street and you wouldn't even know that there was an alien walking past you.
There could be spies.
There could be spies. But I think, within the media world, a lot of the sensationalism has been caught because of the films that are made. And this then becomes dangerous territory, because once someone makes something into a film and starts to address the UFO phenomena and the abduction episodes that are carried out, it becomes kind of like a myth, rather like the Roswell case.
Yes, that's right. Yes. I mean, this, as I said, this disinformation about the UFOs. I mean, as I said before, I believe the military are much wiser to it, and of course they might be hiding a terrible secret. But the point being is that I actually personally don't believe most of them are coming from outer space. I believe they're coming through inner space, a dimension. And I don't believe they're very nice at all. I mean, certainly from the research I've done. And as I said as well, there's so many elements to it, and there's so many different faces. I mean, different kinds of aliens. You lose count. You have the reptilians, you have the greys, you have the blonde-haired, blue-eyed ones, you have the tall greys, the praying mantis creatures. It goes on and on. But the point being is that could it be possible that, from my own point of view, that they can change their faces at will, as they can change their ships, so they appear to different people in different guises? This is a point I'll make about an incident where a chap was taken on board a ship, and before the horror of seeing the entities, he was shown this lovely wise man standing before him. And I gather that's just used as a projection to make him feel a little more comfortable before the nightmare of the things coming in and doing their experiments or whatever they need to do. It's just a hypothesis. I personally don't think they're good, and I think they've lied to so many people. As I said at Ben's group, I do believe they're demonic. A good portion of them anyway. I think they're from a dimension that CERN itself, I think, probably might discover as they hack away at the dimensions with their monstrosity.
Yeah, we'll come to CERN a little bit later. I feel it's interesting, and I do agree with you, Ronnie, that, with regards to the abduction phenomena, it does sniff suspect, because the beings themselves do not want the abductee to remember anything or coherently remember anything with regards to the episode, and therefore it's almost as if they want it deliberately wiped from memory. Now, that doesn't, in my eyes, appear to be good, because because it suggests that if the Greys are doing this, then we have to look at the bigger picture and ask, why are they doing this? If they were, as you said, benevolent and friendly, there's no way on this planet that beings would go about doing this kind of thing.
Night snatchings.
Yeah,
no.
night snatchings. No, that's right.
No, because if they were friendly, I would believe or would assume that they would appear above our cities. Like the book I read by Arthur C. Clarke, Childhood's End. Now, I've read that 3 or 4 times, and I love that. And they did a mini-series, which I thought was fantastic. I mean, I know they had a dark agenda at the end, but the point being is that they arrived in their ships above all the capital cities like Independence Day, but not like, because they were peaceful, and they steered mankind in the right direction. You know, a much more prosperous future without the greed and without the wars, you know, but they're not doing that. So when it's logical. It's like you have to think like Sherlock Holmes. I was not as smart as Sherlock Holmes, but we have to think like him. If they are doing these operations, these snatchings covertly, well, it's not very nice, is it? It's not good. I mean, they're secretive. They hide in the shadows, and that's not good. I don't believe that's good at all. I think they have a much fouler agenda, and I think it's suspect when we do see portions of footage, apparent footage, of when you see objects heading towards the Earth and they're fired at from us to deter them. There was one incident where one ball of light was moving towards them. There was a flash, obviously one of our weapons, and it quickly zooms back again. So it's a deterrent. Obviously, the powers that be are aware of them, and if they're firing at them, that can't be very good, can it? Not very good at all.
No, that's right. And it's like going back to the Roswell, New Mexico crash landing. I think every single ufologist on this planet knows about that case where a craft had apparently come down in Roswell, and there was a terrible storm, and that the military, after was it Mac Brazel, wasn't it, who was the rancher who discovered the initial wreckage, took it to the military, and they came and then started to, collect all of the parts. They had actually announced in the Roswell Gazette that they had in their possession a flying disc. That's right. And then retracted the story.
Because they were frightened of the implications. They knew what would happen.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
And they blamed it on they said the whole thing was nothing more than a secret mogul weather balloon. Mogul weather balloon.
Yeah, this is the sad thing about ufology. I mean, especially with this incident, because you have the autopsy film. I mean, I don't know if it's real or not. I'm not going to say if I believe it or not. But what I will say is that the amount of books written based on this, especially the aftermath, where one of the aliens was injured and kept alive. I mean, there was a book I read, I won't give the title, about this woman who was allegedly part of the program to learn from it. And I'm sorry, after reading that, it was intriguing and it was rather convincing, but I did not believe the testimony one bit. And the Roswell, I actually do believe a ship crashed there. I absolutely believe that they recovered bodies. But as with everything, they have this vile effort of clouding these circumstances.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, though, that there's been a lot of variations within the story, but the main consensus is that there were allegedly 2 crashes, that they reckon that the lightning storm had struck one of the crafts and it had crashed into another one, and that the other craft subsequently had been found sometime later. And I believe that was discovered by an archaeological group who had stumbled upon the debris at the time. But with regards to the Greys, I mean, the descriptions of them, they haven't changed at all within the abduction phenomena and going back into our past. Could it be possible that they were responsible as kind of like, gene makers for their masters to create us?
Well, certainly perhaps to upgrade us, because then you come into the question of God, the creation of the universe. Who created that? Who created them? Are they synthetic robots? Are they clones? Are they beings from another star or a dimension? We won't know that. I don't think anyone does know. But I think, as I said, some factions are much wiser to it, especially the military. The point being, it seems to me that every time there are reports of them, they're completely shrouded in mystery. Even the commercial airline pilots advised not to talk about them, and we know that. It's only when they retire would they come clean with it. But, it's like every effort is being made to subdue the subject. This is what gives negative people or the public the fuel they require to completely poo-poo the subject and to attack online. I mean, I've seen some wonderful, on YouTube, I've seen some wonderful documentaries on this, and you have this vile thumbs down, you have these vile comments that go on, and they don't just, they're talking about freedom of speech, but it's not freedom of speech, because they're actually attacking the person's character. They just absolutely amaze me. These people who do this, I think most of them,
trolls.
That's what we call them, trolls. They don't do any research. They sit there, they've had a bad day, and they think, oh, who can I attack? So they go in, guns are blazing, and start decimating someone's character along with their testimony when they've got no idea what this person's been through or what their experiences actually entailed. It's just, they know better, these trolls, than the powers that be that cover this all up. They're helping. And I should think the powers that be are absolutely laughing their socks off at what's going on, because it's like a lovely, clean pool of water. That's what it was like when Roswell's ship crashed. And then they started to muddy it until it becomes black tar. You can't get anything from it. I like that actually.
Well, the thing is, though, talking about disinformation, I mean, we now know that seeing as we become quite technologically advanced.
Oh, yes.
And I absolutely believe in Colonel Philip Corso's book, The Day After Roswell, that certain parts of the Roswell craft, and indeed perhaps many others, have been subtly integrated into our society with tools that we use today. And those tools are not anything that really benefit us in the long run, because I believe the military have, the Rolls Royce of that technology, but we're given like the toys, like the mobile phones, the tablets, and the internet and the computers that we have today. And this is exactly where the powers that be know how to turn one person against another through disinformation and control.
Yes, you see, we're leaving one problem, which is as mysterious and unearthly, into another, because we're just as bad, the human race. I mean, you get the hands on this technology. Yes, it's wonderful. I love computers. I love robots. And as I said at Ben's group, we're going to see a lot more of them. They're going to be absolutely amazing in the future. I have a hunch, as I said to Philip, with AI, that the first household robots themselves will be perhaps no taller than a child, a toddler, but they will be absolutely wonderful and essential, because they can go around your house, check up on it, do odd jobs like hoovering, dusting, keeping an eye on it. But of course, as I said, with everything, like everything we have, it is used and abused. There is no order at the moment to the internet. I know they're now clamping down on Google and YouTube with certain things. As long as they don't disqualify freedom of speech, that's fine to a degree.
Yeah,
but the AI is going to improve drastically. I mean, they have these quantum computers now. I mean, they're going to even get more advanced. I remember Grandad, our grandfather, he said to me, he actually said, he always said, you will see, both of you, the first thinking computer before you die. You'll see the first thinking computer. And he said it wouldn't be run on microprocessors, sort of like, I think, bacteria used as binary codes for that, but the speed of them would be absolutely like lightning, because it can process information much faster than even the quantum computer. Whether he's right or not, I don't know. I don't know where he got that. He did read science fiction, but he was a clever man.
Yeah, and I also think that the system, as I call it, the apex of control, will utilize these quantum computers.
Well, they'll be much more sophisticated then.
To access every single piece of information on every single subject and every single person. And this leads then to control. We can see now at the moment, with regards to the media outlets, of the system doesn't have to do anything. people left to their own devices to work things out, they haven't one step forward to help us understand the UFO phenomena. And I also know that NASA is just a front for the secret space program, another area of controversy where the public again are duped.
Well, of course they're going to be suspicious, because fancy them actually blatantly saying that they want to land man on Mars. And this is where I can't believe the stupidity of it. And they're trying to confront the problem of the Van Allen belt, basically a donut ring, a radiation belt, lethal around the Earth. Well, excuse me, but they conquered that in 1969, and before that, did they not? When they landed man on the moon. So they got past the Van Allen belt quite easily in ships that were quite thin, weren't they?
Yes, the whole modus operandi of the military is suspect because of this secret UFO technology that has been secretly secreted away from the public domain in an effort to establish some type of space program of their own.
So you're basically saying that we're being shown nuts and bolts while they have the creme de la creme?
That's correct, and that basically what we are fed within the public sectors is nothing less than toys that really don't benefit us, but have been designed specifically for this huge control. It's like the Matrix. Remember the
That's
trilogy?
where we go back to the AI. You see, we were talking about that, how it's going to progress, but it's not going to be nice. It's going to get ugly. The powers that be, the governors then, this technology will be so incredible, this software, they will be beyond quantum computers, the quantum realm. But what they will do is they will influence people to get plugged in.
So with this technology that really doesn't benefit us except for communication, it's actually doing the reverse. It's actually shutting our emotional responses, our sensory connections down. If you think about it now, more people than ever communicate through the mobile phone, through texting. Mm-hmm. And there's no emotional responses going on there,
no.
Which is also making the individual feel more like a robot. And this is the thing with addiction, and I know this has been stated before.
It is an addiction.
Yeah, because we're all guilty of it.
Not all.
Not all, but most people are guilty of having their phone with them and looking at it every 10 or 15 minutes. And this is what the system wants, to impose a carefully constructed program whereby your emotional responses are being disabled, completely disabled, and you end up basically becoming a Cyberman.
Yes, that's right. As I said, with anything that is made, it's always used and abused. Going back to the robots, as I said, they're going to be wonderful, but they're also going to be horrific because they'll be abused. The corporations that own them, perhaps, let's just say the domestic robots that the company build for your homes, the little ones, as I foresee or have a hunch they will be, you only need someone to try and hack them, and they could end up burning your house down, or even worse, attacking you, or letting crooks in. This is where we have to be very careful in the future, especially with military robots, because I think they're going to be absolutely incredible. And I think we only have to look at the film Terminator to worry about concerns regarding AI and how far it will go. Because I know people will say, or the scientists will say, oh no, we'll build a thinking computer, but it can never get that far. It can. And they will try it. They will build the thinking computer.
Well, they're creating robots out of us already. We can clearly see that in the days of old, people were able to communicate face to face. Now it's machine to machine, and our family values are being robbed because, most people have to work, earn a living. And I believe also that the system, this is all intended by those at the top of the symbolic pyramid of power, because they can sit back comfortably knowing that they can just place something in the public sector, on the media machine, and get people to argue about it. And we're now seeing the swirls of the human minds coming out. And I'm absolutely certain, like the Greys themselves, are clones or seem to be some form of clone entity that work within a hive mind consciousness. I believe that the system wants us to be the same, very much the same, that we all aren't allowed to think for ourselves, that we obey instructions, and that we, carry out orders that's promoted by the system. We also know as well that a lot of the brainwashing techniques that most people used to laugh at, MK Ultra, are very much a reality.
Yeah.
And there are certain cases I won't mention here, which did make news headlines. And I was always very suspicious about the individual doing what they did and how they did it without them having any memory of what was. And I feel that sometimes that they are test subjects for the military-industrial complex and also for those at the top of the pyramid.
Yes, and to add to this disinformation, we'll go back to the aliens again. I mean, I recently saw a documentary by this doctor on YouTube where he has his own theories about the abduction phenomena. Well, he believes that what it is an elite group of people in the world sending a beam in to any room, anyone, at any time, if they so desire, to make out that they've had an abduction, in order for them to believe there's a phantom menace to up the arms division. Now, after listening to this, I thought, this is quite wrong. To my mind, this is ridiculous. I mean, is it possible? Is it quite possible? But what he's doing is using disinformation to take us away from the horrible truth that these things are real, these UFOs and these entities, and that the military have absolutely no power over them. It would seem so. They have no control over them. So what do? They come up with these tactics to make people believe that it's the military doing super secret operations. I smell a rat with that.
Yeah, it's like going back to the disinformation. We taking examples, the moon landings, the Apollo moon landings that most people at loggerheads with regards.
Yes, well, you cannot say for definite whether they landed or not.
No, that's right. But again, I have always been under the opinion that the secret military establishment have created their own space travel. I do not discount that, and that within the public sector, we are shown something or a version of what they want us to believe as truth. The same as you're saying about the UFO phenomena. It's being deliberately diverted because a lot of the UFO encounters that have happened have been negative. Very small numbers of them have been positive. In regards to the argument, are we dealing with aliens that have our best interests at heart, or are we dealing with creatures that do not? And through all the years of research that I've been doing, I believe that we're dealing with something that's slightly more to the negative rather than the positive.
Yes, it's also ancient. Whatever it is, it's ancient. I mean, we had the fairies and trolls and goblins, then the Nordics, then the Greys. I mean, I said this before, they seem to be able to aptly change their faces and their styles like their ships, whereas they had airships, then the traditional flying saucers. Now we have the triangular ships. It's really weird, isn't it? It's like what's in vogue.
Yes, with regards to the Greys, for instance, I mean, through my research, my many years of researching this, when an abductee is taken on board a craft, the entities themselves are able to, mind read. And more times than not, and in shocking cases, a dead relative of the abductee suddenly appears on board the craft. Now, this is quite disturbing because I believe in some sense that when the Greys perform their intrusive medical procedures, they are trying to somehow counteract the abductee's attention away from what's really going on. And this started to sniff suspect to me because when we looked at the abduction phenomena, I mean, in the 40s and 50s, the accounts of visitations from these so-called aliens was on a very physical level of reality. And now it seems the Greys have upped their program. And I believe that, and I've said before in the work that I've done, I believe that some form of soul extraction is taking place, that they're bringing the essence of you, your spiritual essence, into their vibration, so that whatever they do to that energy field that's matched by theirs will still affect the physical counterpart, like healers that heal people without actually touching the physical body.
Yes, they have. Yeah, evidently they have upped their program or their abilities, because, as Philip rightly said, in the 40s or 50s and 60s, the crafts actually landed. I mean, we have the famous Betty and Barney Hill case, which I believe absolutely happened. And they take them on board the ship and perform a number of operations. They're not so intrusive then, but now they can beam them up into their ships and follow them. There was the case, the wonderful Bud Hopkins wrote the book on, called Witness, wasn't it?
Yes.
Where the woman was taken from her apartment with 3 of the entities following her. This was witnessed by a high governing official in a street, and it was a block of flats. They took her from it.
I think it had a lot to do with the orchestration of the environment. I think the Greys are worried for some reason that the human race will pollute this planet. So obviously they need us for something. And I think it's important that the reason that they showed themselves was to affect all these players that came together within this amazing abduction. Now, what's also interesting is that whenever these situations occur, when UFOs are seen, when the entities are seen, when this, as Jenny Randall's coined the term Oz factor occurs, it seems like you're in another world, doesn't it? And
yes.
we've had experiences before that when we've seen UFOs, it seems like everything around changes, doesn't it?
Yes,
the environment changes.
It's rather like time stands still.
Yes, as though they're using a pocket of time and suspending it as they come in. And I've argued again for the case that the reason for lost memories or people having amnesia due to their abductions could be because the mind is being taken out of its natural time-space continuum and brought into their level of reality.
There's only one problem with that hypothesis, what you said about them being concerned about us polluting the earth. I mean, wouldn't it be far easier for them to just land on the lawns of the White House and address the president in that manner all over the world? Why do they have to do it so discreetly?
Our covert operations, the military do the same thing. And I also believe that there's a plan behind why they're doing what they're doing. And all the researchers, and I have to state here, all the respected researchers that, hand on our hearts, we have the greatest respect for all of them, because we're all trying to pull our energies, our thoughts, our ideas together in unraveling this very multi-complex mystery. So I do believe that there is an agenda behind what's going on. And are the military involved? Yes, I'm absolutely convinced that they have their hands, closely linked with claws in this.
It is complicated because their reasons for intervention are extremely muddied. I mean, we have them taking people up and doing experiments on them. And then we come to the issue of the horrible case of cattle mutilation. I mean, there's so much going on. No wonder it's pigeonholed, because there are so many different things going on. I mean, no wonder, I suppose you could say people are absolutely thrown by it, because you have firstly the people saying that they're having encounters with aliens, showing them peace and all this hippie happy love and their concern for the earth. Then you have others, and excuse the pun, plugging things up people's bottoms and doing experiments. And then you have the cattle mutilations on top of the crash discs in Roswell. Now, the cattle mutilations are very, very disturbing, and I believe there have been some very reputable researchers doing work on this. Now, whoever or whatever's doing this, and I don't believe it's the military for 1 minute, it's a dark and powerful force. Now, I said this in my group as well to Ben and the others, that again Sherlock Holmes comes into it. Why would they, or these things, whoever doing it, cut up cattle? Well, as I said, cattle is a major source of dairy products, protein. You've got the milk, butter, you've got beef. Is it possible that they're going to introduce or have introduced a subtle enzyme to change us somehow? I mean, let's be honest, if they were going to take over the world, they could do it quite easily. All they would need to do is introduce a germ and kill us all off and have a clean-up operation. They don't need us as slaves, because they're that advanced. They can build robots. They can do all the work for them, just as we're developing, as we said, our friends, our mechanical friends. So what on earth do they want us for? This is disturbing.
Yes, and I believe that, with regards to those subject matters that you've gone over, with regards to the intrusive operations, with regards to the cattle mutilation, and also bringing into account the whole hypothesis of the abduction phenomena, I believe that they are all linked, and I believe that the Greys are very much interested in the human soul, what makes us tick. And that's why I've always said I believe that the Greys are outside the field of creation. They're not a natural product of what we represent on a spiritual level. And they are perhaps looking for something that they themselves do not have. I mean, addressing also the godly interpretations,
yes,
if I may, with regards to the wheels or cycles of incarnation and reincarnation. We come into the world through a very amazing way, through reproduction. And it is believed that the soul, has journeys in between lives. And if you clone something, that clone, physical clone, will only have the memory of one life. So it's outside the field of creation. It can't go backwards. It can't go forwards. It has no past. It has no future. It just has that one moment. And within my research, I've argued continuously that these Greys, working as a one hive mind consciousness, perhaps yearn for individualism. They yearn to be being able to express themselves like we can. So there's obviously something very important within us that they are after.
I tend to think it's darker myself. I think their agenda is much darker. Certainly do not believe in all this nonsense of intergalactic love and peace. If you pray to them, they'll come and help you. No, I don't believe that at all.
Which brings in the subject of CERN. Explain, Ronnie.
Yes, now, this is not my discovery. It's attributed to someone else's. Have you noticed? I mean, being on radio, I can't show you, but I did show it at Ben's seminar, is that their logo is actually 666 entwined as mark of the beast. And also, as we know, that they have on their establishment a statue of the destroyer of worlds. And on top of that, their ceremony that they performed through the reignition of this monstrosity, and I'll call it that. I think it's good that they're looking for the God particle, the subatomic level of creation. But I think they're going one step further. They're looking to crack open dimensions. And it's funny, isn't it? We think of dimensions as being ethereal, or it's just like an airy world somewhere else. Not to them, because they're using technology to breach it. And it's quite possible, as I said, it's also the case on the other side, that these UFOs that can change shapes, and these entities that can change their faces, might be something completely different. I'm talking about demons, the archons. An ancient war waged between two factions. We know who they are. But is it quite possible that they are breaching our airspace to study us, to find out what we become, what we're doing, and where we're going, so that they can infiltrate it at a point in time? It would suggest to me, logically speaking, that they, like God, being his children, would be immortal. And also that where they reside, time stands still. Now, when you look at the universe and the earth, everything moves, everything's in motion, right down to the atomic level. Their world, where it stands still, because it's not on a planet, it doesn't revolve, might be quite different from ours. Their chemistry would be far more superior to us. So it does worry me that I do wonder if these are actually the archons, or remnants of God's twisted children that are being punished in this pocket, trying to find a way out and to infiltrate our earth. People would say it sounds ridiculous, but it's no more ridiculous than the creation of the universe. It's no more ridiculous than God. It's no more ridiculous than aliens. We can go on and on and on. There has to be truth to this. There must be truth to some element of it, because, as I said, there's no smoke without fire.
Yes, and it's going back to the trying to get into our realm, so to speak, on a physical level. You can clearly see with regards to the abduction phenomena that the hybridization program clearly demonstrates the Greys trying to bring a new, genus into form. And it could even be conceivable that scientists wanting to open the door to, shall we use the word hell, or those lower dimensions, are allowing these beings into our world. And there could also be the hypothesis that they are already here and that they are somehow creating a new hybridized creature that will eventually take over the world. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but if we look at the facts as they are presented, we can clearly see that the whole of this subject is not just about viewing a UFO that we believe may come from another planet, dimension, or wherever, but also of what the occupants of these so-called crafts are doing. And that is where I believe our answers lie.
Yes, going back to CERN, I mean, it would seem if they were the Archons infiltrating our airspace, which I personally believe they are, I mean, they've already done it to a degree. But what CERN are doing, if they do crack open their dimension, it would actually illustrate the fact of mutual cooperation between these two worlds. I mean, Lucifer would welcome it. As well as his angels, his fallen angels, they'd welcome it. They'll see it as a sign of cooperation. And they would be ever so nice to begin with. They'll give them all this treasure, all this gold, until things start turning ugly.
Yeah, and we can also see that there's been some researchers, most notably David Icke, who has quite clearly illustrated that certain powerful individuals within society are, being possessed or demonized by these different alternative energies. And there's clearly been proof that certain rituals, initiations have been taking place in secret locations around the world.
Yes, that's another point, isn't it? I mean, we hear about child sacrifices and the reptilians. We hear about that. It goes on and on and on. But as I said, I believe there is truth to most of them. We have pigeonholed them into many, many different boxes, but I think some of them form a pattern.
Yes, and we can also see that the old story, and it's never gone away, of good versus evil, of godliness against devils.
Yes, I mean, our world is turning evil. I mean, you're seeing now dictatorship panning out. I mean, they don't need tanks to win this war. As David Icke says, they just wear suits. The point being, the AI technology that is coming will be quite dangerous, because when they plug us in, you can bet your bottom dollar we will be connected to a network. It's rather like the bees, isn't it? A hive. You have the queen and you have all the workers. I think that's what they want, symbolically, a leader and the workers. And the only trouble is with this is that there will be conflict first from other countries. What they're trying to do, I think, is they're trying to get as many islands as they can under one monetary system, one government, to form a federation, one flag, one united nation, one new world order.
Yes, the new world order. And this is, people many, many years ago used to laugh and joke and say, oh, what a load of rubbish, it's conspiracy theory. And as we've been led to believe that conspiracy theories are nothing less than nutters, well, conspiracy theory is nothing less than a psychological weapon to turn doubt on the inquiring mind. And this is exactly what the system wants. It wants people. Its population, not only to decrease the population, but it wants most of the population, if not all, to become a robot. And if you can start, digging, searching, looking into this, you'll find quite shockingly that most of those people who are saying this are not far from the truth now, because we're seeing this indoctrination. We can also see that there's going to be a huge military industrial complex, and that's going to take over. And
a police state.
Yeah, a police state where there's going to be curfews. And what makes me laugh as well is that people think, oh, no, I'm free. I've got freedom. I can do anything I want and like. Well, you're not, because every single time the world governments subtly introduce new laws bit by bit, which is stripping aside all of those things that you believe is freedom. And I also believe as well, with regards to the technology, and we all know this, that the system, these devices that we have, the system can see you. They can listen to your conversations. They know your likes, your dislikes. They know all about you. And that is very frightening.
Yes, that's right. It's rather like the aliens, isn't it? They take you up, or these people up, and do these things to them. I think, you see, as I say, it's not going to be all bad and all doom and gloom. We don't look at it like that. But the point being is that it would seem that we are moving to a very, very smart future. It's going to be wonderful, as I said. I mean, I welcome the robots. Absolutely, because they're going to help us. Not for them to take over our jobs, but you bet your bottom dollar they'll be doing that. But for the emergency services, if cars crash or there's fires in buildings, they can send them in to try and rescue the people. As I said, at home, because we're working longer hours, or we are, they'll be able to do tasks. As I said, look after the house, perhaps do the washing, get your dinner ready, do the ironing, a housewife's dream, and also they will benefit the disabled by doing all their work for them, answering calls, answering the door, doing their shopping. But that brightness comes with a sting in the tail, because as I said, they will be abused, people hacking them or turning them against other people. You're going to have this. It's like the internet, as we said before. They create a wonderful thing, a marvelous piece of communication, electronic communication, and you get people abusing it. They use it to try and infiltrate your bank details. They troll you. They're spiteful. We hear of internet bullying, electronic bullying. I mean, for goodness sake, it just goes on and on. I don't understand why these people, where's this coming from, all this negativity? Why are they so unhappy? This is a point I'm trying to make. This is where they're not helping matters, because they're helping to lead us down that dark avenue in the future where it will be abused. You have people stealing left, right, and centre, killing, destroying. I mean, my goodness.
Yes, and I don't think it's quite a rosy picture, the way that we're going at the moment.
Not entirely, no.
No, because we are slowly giving in our rights, and it's because of the researchers that have been left to try and work out the puzzle, not just of creationalism or our genesis, but also of the field of ufology. And most researchers are banging their heads against walls, because for so many decades, we are still trying to work out what we're dealing with, and it eludes us. It does, ladies and gentlemen, elude us. But we have to have theoretical models to work around. I know there are those that believe, and I'm not disputing that, there probably are, benign aliens out there. And I believe also that a lot of them are very negative. We hear these stories about these military cleanup operations. I know that Richard D. Hall very kindly allowed me to mention in my book, A Passage to Eternity, a case that one of his informants was involved in. And that was very interesting, because it's the Americans who are the ones who actually initiate this so-called cleanup operation.
Yes, and they were evil, the aliens, weren't they? They weren't very nice.
Yes.
They skinned people, didn't they?
Apparently they did. But this is the stuff that is not given out to the general public. And I know that a lot of researchers are at loggerheads with regards to their analysis or their understanding of what's going on. But we have to draw upon those parallels in order to understand exactly what we are dealing with. And I am absolutely under the firm conviction that we are dealing with negative entities.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you 100%. As I said, in the past when they published these books where they were taken up to Neptune or whatever and shown all these rosy pictures, and the aliens were concerned, very concerned about our progress. My goodness. As I said, they've given us bugger all. It's rather like, I see it like this whole thing, like a jigsaw puzzle. You've got all the pieces in the box, and what we're all trying to do is put them together to form a coherent picture. That's not going to come easy. It hasn't done, because all it does, on top of everything else, all the other horrors, is that every single event that occurs with the UFOs causes absolutely a whole host of problems, especially people attacking each other over this happened, that happened, this can't be right, this is wrong. It just is an endless cycle. But the main point of it is that we are trying to find out what they actually are, where they come from, and most importantly, what they want.
Yeah, that'll make a great Hollywood film. What do you think? Well, I mean, with all these, conspiracies they are finding us truth. And talking about conspiracies with JFK, they did discover, didn't they, that it wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh, allegedly. No, I don't believe it was him, because they covered that up as well. My God, they cover everything up.
But see how they're able to sway public opinion,
yes.
How they will make the public believe, and over time they will accept the false version and dismiss the true version.
Yes, that's right.
And it's the same with regards to the moon landings. Eventually in time, those subtle indiscrepancies will be forgotten.
Yeah, that's right. Who are these people in charge?
Well, they are the Illuminati, Ronnie.
Yeah, so I thought we were going to come to that.
I was even flattered because one person on YouTube had even suggested that I was a disinformer for the Illuminati.
Now, although I did say earlier that it looks bright, I meant in one department in the future, because although we're going to have this radical technology, as we all know, we're going to be plugged into it as well. And the film, The Matrix, is quite shocking. I mean, we've seen that. It's quite wonderfully done. I believe Keanu Reeves said it was a documentary.
Yes.
But that's probably the way it's going, or something like that, It's always control, isn't it? Always control.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to bring to the attention of all the good listeners a few books. I did mention in the last show Incident at Devil's Den by Terry Lovelace, which I've read, and is an incredible book. It's available on Amazon. There's also my book, A Passage to Eternity, The Enigma of the Dead, UFOs and Aliens, which you can get on Amazon, and also Ronald's children's books, the Rock Bottom Twins series. He's just released a new one called The Rise of Ramshack.
And you've received a book from Amazon by this wonderful gentleman who we're going to actually have on our show, a wonderful chap who we're going to interview.
Yeah, Terry Lovelace from Incident at Devil's Den. He's going to come on next month, so we're really looking forward to having him on board.
We certainly are indeed. It's an absolutely cracker. Yeah, I do advise you buy this book. It's compelling proof of alien visitation, alleged government involvement, and an alien implant. Discover on a routine X-ray. So this book here by the author, Terry Lovelace, is going to be wonderful, and we're looking so forward to interviewing him, as I said.
There's another book that I got, because Ronnie and I are both always buying UFO books, and we're always ready to promote other authors' works.
Of course, absolutely.
This is the Center for UFO Studies, Close Encounters at Kelly and Others of 1955, by Isabel Davis and Ted Blocher. I hope I pronounced the surname right. I'm sure that's correct. And it really is a wonderful book, which talks about the Kelly, Kentucky case that happened back in 1955, in August, the 21st of 1955, where 5 adults and 7 children had actually been witness to a terrifying UFO invasion with gobbling-type creatures.
Yes, and this is published by Flying Disc Press, and it's bigger than I thought, actually, and I remember this case when I was a kid. I remember reading this. It was quite haunting, and it's an absolutely true case. I believe it was true. It happened. I believe the families fled after the incident, but it's a very, very wonderful book, that.
And another one here is called UFO Hostilities and the Evil Alien Agenda, and that's written by Timothy Green Beckley's book, but I know there's a lot of contribution from other researchers and authors, and I kind of got that because I wanted to see what he had to say and these other researchers had to say about the bad ETs.
Yes, I love the cover of his book. He's got one of these ships on there from the invaders.
Yes,
I love that.
Right.
And they've got the alien grey on the top. I think that's smashing.
The bad kick-ass ETs.
Actually, that was a very good series, actually. We watched the entire lot on DVD, didn't we? I thought that was very good. That was quite an eye-opener, because even they portrayed them as being evil, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, they're classic, aren't they? And, of course, you have the more modern version of the X-Files, which were fantastic.
Yes.
Absolutely brilliant episodes with Mulder and Scully. And, and one of the things that makes me laugh even in the X-Files, and as well as the invaders, that as soon as they got near to the truth, it was disappeared, taken, or just vanished.
Oh, it all
so they were left with nothing.
All the evidence when they cleared out, didn't they? They cleared out.
Nothing today has changed with regards to that respect in terms of evidence. It just is whipped away or stolen by obviously higher establishments of power.
Or the aliens themselves just whip it all away, like in the case of the invaders. They went there and it's all gone, it's all cleaned out. I think the imagination of these people, and these were actually, don't be fooled, these were based on the cases of UFOs. You know, these are based on the flying saucers at the time, the wave of them, that they came up with these stories, but they were entertaining.
Yeah. Well, I hope you've enjoyed listening to Twin Souls with the show that we've done today. And next month we'll be having Terry Lovelace on board talking about his experiences with the UFOs.
Yes. Yeah.
And thank you for tuning into this episode of Disinformation. And we hope that you are safe and well. For all you believers out there, from me and Ronnie, keep believing, keep searching, and let no one ever sway your evidence, whatever form it may come in. So God bless you all. You've been listening to Twin Souls in association with the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Stay safe and keep digging.